The one area that I think I separate myself from all the other conditioning programs, I do have a systematized approach to mindset.
She was so focused on my holistic movement. I've never had a trainer who did that before.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I need this for college, especially going to like the next level. Like it's completely different.
You are setting up these young ladies right here for success. I mean, I didn't learn these things that you're teaching them until halfway through the military.
Imagine if everybody took part in something like this. The difference it could make in their life. So talk a little about, Lisa, if you could, about your mindset program. You went from training kids on the field to really almost like it's an all-encompassing training now that you can not only use for sports, but you can use outside of sports too.
Just a quick background on the history of, my program today and how it's evolved and when it first started. I am a middle school teacher. I teach 7th grade, and I've been doing that for 27 years, but I've been coaching kids since I was 18 years old. From probably 22 to 29, I was coaching all of the travel soccer teams in the area. And, being a young female, I would try to impart my philosophy on what was the best approach for developing female athletes in particular. The sad thing is, I know you kind of gave your slant on travel sports. It wasn't necessarily my experience when I was playing travel, but at least in the 90s and then beyond, I just started seeing an unhealthy atmosphere for these female athletes, at least on the soccer circuit. And these kids were being overtrained, overworked, underdeveloped. And at some point, probably after a few years, I started seeing at 12 and 13 girls burning out, getting injured. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? Because I didn't see this when I was growing up. You didn't see the rate of burnout and injury in these young athletes at 13 and 14 years old. And so in trying to impart my philosophy about a holistic approach to developing athletes, because that's how I was developed through my dad, who's a coach, who not only conditioned me, but who was impeccable with our nutrition. He, taught us about mindset, and he taught us about rest and sleep. And he really gave us a full picture of, just being a healthy individual first before we could be a good athlete. And so I just thought everybody had that approach.
Definitely not. I coached, we talked about this on many occasions. I coached travel softball from the time the girls were 8 years old until they were in high school. And I've seen coaches, I should have knocked a few of them out on other teams because I never seen people talk to people like that. And my girls kept on winning. You know why my girls won? Well, we were like a B+ team. They won because here's my philosophy. You know what you have to do. I'm not going to yell at you. And if you don't want to be here, then why are you here? No one ever quit, and everybody always stayed, and we won. I don't know. And these other guys are having freaking meltdowns on the field.
But it's also the culture of our sports today.
Oh, yeah.
And the culture of our sports today is play more, get in the Premier Leagues, pay a lot of money to play. And what happens is you suck the life out of these kids because they're overtrained and they're not having fun and they're not prepping their bodies correctly. And that's what I do a lot of. And I just realized I could not change the culture of travel soccer, and I could not change the mindset of these coaches. And so that's why I decided to leave travel soccer, and I started my own program. And at first it was just conditioning soccer players. And I would train them in the summer. I would get them ready for their fall season. The majority of my kids, of course, were from my, pool of athletes that I trained from all those soccer teams. So I had a really good clientele base. And I just decided I was going to train them the same way I was trained. And what started as just a soccer conditioning program ultimately turned into a holistic approach to developing the female athlete. So I train all athletes, but I would say 80% of my athletes are females, soccer players, softball players, multi-sport athletes, triathletes, all different sports, you name it. And after I just started, doing the conditioning part of the program, what I realized is my conditioning is only going to take them so far. If their nutrition sucks, if their sleep habits suck, if they're not getting enough rest and recovery, and of course, if they're not thinking the way that they need to think to be, at the level that they want to be at, then conditioning is only a very small percentage. And so the 4 in Fitness for Function stands for the 4 aspects, I think, of developing the athlete, which is the conditioning, nutrition, rest and recovery, and mindset. And so besides giving them what I had a foundation in, I had to do my own research. I had to get my certifications, and I had to learn more about all of those areas so I could really get my kids to where they wanted to be and maintain that. So as you know, and my girls can attest to this, your conditioning is such a small part of really your success as an athlete. If you're not supporting it with all of those other human factors, like your sleep, like your nutrition, like your stress and your mindset, you're only going to go so far in your sport, and you're going to burn out, you're going to get injured, and you're not going to have that longevity. So here we are 27 years later, and it really is a holistic approach to conditioning and to developing the athlete. And the one area that I think I separate myself from all the other conditioning programs, because there's a lot of them out there, is I do have a systematized approach to mindset. And I make sure that when you enter my program, you are not just getting the conditioning, you are also being trained in the mindset part of who you are as an athlete and a person. Because you can be skilled and you can be well conditioned, but if you can't access all of that skill and conditioning because you don't have a certain frame of thinking and a certain way of thinking and feeling and habits and routines, then you're not going to be able to access all of that amazing skill set and knowledge and conditioning that you're working so hard to build.
Mind you, like, I've gone through, I don't even know, like 4 or 5 trainers, and I was like, not like loving really my training. I thought I was getting too bulky and too, focused on weightlifting, and Lisa was just the perfect fit for me, whether when it came to balancing that mental piece of the game and also the physical piece. She didn't really put me under a weight rack and tell me to squat 300 pounds. Like, she was so focused on my holistic movement. I've never had a trainer who did that before. So a couple months ago, the struggle of transferring schools, and I sent Lisa this text, and I was like, being a little sappy, but I was like, I've never had a trainer transform me, not only physically, but mentally. And I, accredit a lot of my success of my junior season to you, because I've never had a trainer who cared as much about me as a person rather than just a performer than Lisa did. So honestly, like, not saying this because she's on the podcast to tell anyone. I actually got Sophia to go to Lisa because of how many amazing things I had to say about her. And obviously Sophia stuck around. So I guess, Lisa did a pretty good job. She's the best of the best. And I really do talk to everyone in Hamilton and, the New Jersey area that she's the place to be. I've never felt so good about myself when it came to like who I am as a person and a player before I met Lisa. So I owe a lot of my success to her, and she was really there for me when I was transferring schools. I was honestly the most like emotional path and roller coaster I've been on, but for the most part, my family and friends, of course, are there for me, but I feel like Lisa's like my therapist and my trainer all in one.
I survived throughout high school somehow. I was definitely not mentally strong. I wasn't really confident in myself. I talked really badly to myself. Like, when I made a mistake, I'd be like, oh my gosh, Soph, like, you should have done this better, you should have done that better. Like, I'm a perfectionist, but Lisa has helped me with that, with training and just games and stuff like that. And Gianna actually introduced me to her. I saw they did like a podcast interview thing, and I was like, oh my gosh, I need this for college, especially going to like the next level. Like, it's completely different to high school. And I was like, Mom, like, I really should start doing Lisa. And like, I had my interview with Lisa, and I just remember
your discovery call.
Yes, my discovery call. And I discovered I talked really badly about myself. Going to her like that summer going into freshman year, like, just completely changed my outlook and mindset, because like Samantha said, you don't really have that like in club and even like throughout high school and like in college, how she changed her program. Like, it's not really that talked about. So going into Lisa and like just, it really opened up my eyes. Like, it's really funny. I have like all my folders like still in my room, and like I take it to college with me.
In the moment, you might not feel that, or maybe you do, and I don't know. But you'll have a legacy as you're doing this of uber ultra, whatever the proper terminology you want to use, successful people. And what better could you give back than, of course, being a teacher? And everybody says it's a noble profession, but look at what you're mentoring. Look at the changes that it goes from the softball field to the, to the corporate office. It goes from the soccer field to the classroom. So that has to make you feel good. And it's amazing that imagine if everybody took part in something like this, the difference it could make in their life. If that person buys into the program, obviously, like mentally buys into it, but think of the difference that it could make. And then when your students go out and they mentor other people, well, now it continues to grow exponentially. That's got to be an amazing feeling.
Definitely. I mean, the conditioning is fleeting, but the mindset is something that can take you on the journey of becoming the person that you want to be. And that's the tagline of Fitness for Function: become the athlete that you want to be, become the person you want to be. And we have mantras in the program. Everybody has their own mantra. And my mantra is, I have something to teach that people want to know. And I bring meaning and value to my athletes. And so every time I question myself and maybe think that, you question if you're doing the right thing, and, you have the self-doubts that fly in, I go back to my mantra and I think about my athletes like Sophia and Samantha and Gianna and so many more who've come through the program. And I feel blessed that they've been in my life, because I get to do something valuable and it fulfills, the purpose of why I think I'm here.
Lisa, I just have to say, as a former soccer player, as a veteran, a woman in the, U.S. Armed Forces is very, it's like a 1-to-4 ratio. So that's difficult on its own. You are setting up these young ladies right here for success. I mean, I think the program's great, first of all. I mean, you're making these women or people into whole, well-rounded individuals. And I wish I didn't learn these things that you're teaching them until after or like halfway through the military. So the fact that you're giving this to them, it's such a really beautiful gift you have. It's really, I admire you.